Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Great to see you. We had a great turnout for Committee of the Whole. I'd like to call the special Committee of the Whole meeting for Monday, July 13th to order. Councillor Ward sends his regrets. We have quorum. This time, I would like to acknowledge that we are gathered here on the traditional territory of the Lekwungen-speaking people, represented by the Songhees and Kisepsin nations, and whose stewardship of these lands continues to this date. Item 2 is approve of agenda. May I have a mover and second, or just a mover, I guess, to adopt today's agenda. Thank you very much, Councilor Olson. And discussion, any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. May I have a mover to adopt the minutes of the June 22nd, 2026 Committee of the Whole meetings? Thank you very much, Councilor Grove. And are there any error submissions? Seeing none, I'll call the question. Any opposed? Seeing none, I will move on to item 4, which is public participation. There were no written submissions that were received for Committee of the Whole. No members of the public have registered to speak virtually. At this time, I will invite members of the public the opportunity to present concerns or questions, and you'll be given 2 minutes, at which time you'll see the green, amber, and then the red light. The red light means you're going to stop. So anyone that hasn't been here through public participation. Alternately, well, I guess it doesn't matter. We only have the one item on the agenda. So there are business cards that are available on the podium. So if you want a written answer to your question, you just have to submit your question and we will answer it. The only thing I would like to remind everyone at this point in time is that comments pertaining to the partial exclusion application of Colwood Creek Park from the agricultural land reserve have been subject to a public hearing and are therefore prohibited at this meeting. At this point in time, I will move on to item 5, which is new business, the Metchosin Road Corridor Study. And Mr. Johnson, if I can have you.
Thank you, members of the council. This is the Metchosin Road Corridors. Mr. Rosenberg, our Director of Engineering and Public Works, has a presentation should you wish to receive it. There are a number of recommendations. I won't read them out in terms.
Sorry, you know what? I didn't get the public participation in. Sorry. I see Mr. Conrad standing there and with this piece of paper there. So please come on up and yeah, sorry about that.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Council, staff, Roger Conrad, Colwood. I passed out. Unfortunately, I'm disappointed that this couldn't be put up on the screen so the public could see it. So I'm going to be talking to figures that people in the audience have no idea what I'm talking about. So that's rather disappointing that this isn't put on the screen for people to see. However, what I did, I took the Metchosin Road corridor, and for the average is 20 meters wide. And I tried looking at all aspects of it, and I came up with 2 alternatives that everything that Metchosin, or pardon me, Colwood wants could fit within that corridor. 2 sidewalks that are normally 2 meters wide, total 4, 2 curbs, 0.45 meters each, totals up to 0.9, 1.8, total up to 3.6. Separation barriers at 0.4 add up to 0.8. 2 driving lanes at 3.6 to give you a drivable lane of 3.5, which council requested at 7.2, and 1 center lane at 3.2, center line to center line, which would give you a pullover lane of 3.1. That adds up to 19.7 meters, well within the 20-meter road right-of-way. The other way, if you modify the sidewalks to 1.7 and the bike lanes to 1.5, that totals up to 18.5 meters, And that gives you 1.5 meters of leeway one way or the other. My worry about this report, they will find 100 reasons why they can't put 3 lanes in.
I'll give you an extra minute, Mr. Conrad.
Okay, thank you. So for example, lately, there was a motion by council to put everything against the property line. And if engineering or planning couldn't do it, they were to come back to council with the reason why and ask for permission. Well, 2 new bus stops were put in. They weren't put to the property line. They never came to council for approval. There's 2 on Metchosin Road. There's 1 on Kelly Road, same thing. I stopped and asked the crew what was going on. Oh, we were told we had to put it exactly here. Well, it's right in front of a tree. How convenient. If they'd have moved it to the left or moved it to the right, they could have put it right against the property line. So right there, we lost over 1.5 meters. So there's going to be a multitude of reasons. Telephone poles, hydro kiosks, but this is a big project. And I really think we have to look hard and maybe do it in sections, but do it properly. The ideal thing would be to put the telephone poles and hydro poles underground. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, please. No, final call, public participation. See none, I will turn it over to you, John. Yes. Oh, definitely. Yes, come on up, please. Oh, you just have to push a button there, right on the slide. Right. No. There you go.
Thank you. I am Thiago. Hi. My question is, do we have already the design for the corridor, or is it's just a study to see what people want?
Yes, that's what they're doing actually. You know, there is a preliminary draft design, but nothing's finalized at this point.
Okay, I'm here. I know that's a hard subject. I'm here just to represent people that usually bike around the chosen road. And Latoria, uh, Langford did such a great job at their side of Latoria, connecting Galloping Goose to a future probably existing in Latoria up to Metchosin Road. And I wish they could see like active transportation through Latoria and going to Metchosin, so we can access Royal Roads and connecting to Galloping Goose too. Otherwise, people are going through Souk Road, which is awful to ride. I like to have the option to ride to downtown using other transportation than a car, and I would love to see that option other than using my car to go into downtown. Otherwise, during winter times, if my only option is driving, I'll be part of one extra car. I have an extra car. I'm going to take a space, and I don't feel that. I feel that I want to live in a place that I have more than only a car to get to somewhere else. That's all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, what's your name again? Sorry.
My name is Thiago
Right, and where do you live?
Latoria.
On Langford, Colwood?
No, in Colwood.
Okay, thank you very much.
Well,
Anyone else wish to speak? No, not seeing any. Okay, at this point in time, I'll close the public participation and turn it over to you, John, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. We have Brad Ormiston here tonight, the Senior Project Manager for the corridor study representing ISL. He's got a presentation. It'll be about 15 to 20 minutes. Council can ask questions. The committee can ask questions during the presentation and or at the end as they see fit. And there's a recommendation tonight for you to consider if you'd like to or alter it as you deem fit. Thank you.
Thank you very much. push the button on the mic there. Right, perfect.
All good?
Yes, thank you.
All right, let's get started. My name is Brad Armiston, and on behalf of ISL Engineering and Land Services, I want to thank you for the opportunity to come and present our report that's been completed on behalf of the City of Colwood. As somebody that grew up here in Colwood, attended both Wishart Elementary and Dunsmore Middle School, this project's been a lot of fun to be a part of. We understand that council's already directed staff towards a preferred 3-lane cross section, and really this study refines that direction into a set of prioritized and fundable projects. This is a draft study intended to confirm priorities and gather input before those concepts can really be brought forward into detailed design. Why the study? Congestion. So Metchosin Road's a 2-lane arterial road with numerous driveways, no dedicated turn lanes. Travel times can more than double in the PM peak. Safety. The corridor has a documented pattern of rear-end collisions that are tied to queuing and intersection performance. And then long-term growth. So we recognize the major residential development in Royal Bay, the Commons, Southlands, and Beachlands, plus the ongoing infill. That's driving substantial growth for traffic. In the report, we tied it back to policy, so it aligns with the direction from the city's OCP, the Transportation Master Plan, strategic plan, all of which name Chosen Road as a priority corridor. We've used this report to set the city up for long-term success, with the corridor providing a blueprint of design criteria, design toolkits, and evaluation framework to set those priorities. Now, I want to be clear, like this is a starting point for discussions related to detailed design. The study started from a desired 3-lane cross-section and has tested its feasibility on the corridor backed by traffic analysis, then used a decision-making matrix to work through conflicts as they came up. So those vertical obstructions, hydro poles, fire hydrants, and some of those grading challenges. Really to set the lens for the report, we provided a design decision toolkit to allow for a bit of a glimpse into moving concept design into detailed design. And ultimately construction. Now, this philosophy is to resolve conflicts as they arise rather than pre-deciding outcomes. So one of the best ways I like to explain this is by using trees. So we recognize that when we're designing, we have a desired cross-section, we have our curb-to-curb width, and then what goes behind the curb, the boulevard, the sidewalk, the bike lane, the tie-into property. When we come up to a tree, what's really important to know is that tree healthy? Because if it's, in decline or potentially standing dead in a hazard, then that decision is really made for us. We get to just remove the tree and carry on with the design. But if the tree is healthy, then we move down another level. And is that tree is it a high value tree to the community, or potentially has it been cut asymmetrically by BC Hydro, or the roots are heaving existing, or what could be future infrastructure? And that provides us a lot of context as to what we do in and around that one obstruction. And in the report, we've provided kind of our desired and then our constrained minimums to try and get in and around those vertical obstacles. The toolkit also is what lets the city stay consistent as constraints are considered during detailed design. A bit of a corridor overview or study area. Up on the screen, segment 1, you'll see at the bottom from Latoria Boulevard to Kenning Court. And really that was broken out predominantly because it's tied to the development. It's also in an area that doesn't have any driveway accesses or turning requirements. So that became kind of a natural boundary of breaking it out into chunks in what we call segment 1. Segment 2 runs from Kenning Court up to Wishart Road, shown in green. And that's where we transition to that 3-lane desired cross section. A lot of the same consistent constraints that show up and making it kind of a natural boundary between those two roads. And then 3 from Wishart to Souk, and that has broken out predominantly because in the report we do need that additional lane, so the 4th lane in the long term, recognizing that we have a lot of those consistent constraints along the corridor. Some of the key findings in a report: congestion. So as I mentioned, peak hour travel times nearly double free flow conditions, and that congestion has contributed to the increase in rear end collisions along the corridor. In short, this is a safety story. It's not just an inconvenience story. The next one, intersections matter. So the top three ranked projects in the priority framework are all intersections. So that's Lagoon Road, Painter Road, Wishart Road. They deliver strong safety benefits, strong safety and operational benefit at a comparatively low cost and can be constructed independently. Lastly, physical constraints. So anyone that's been out there and walked the corridor, you can really appreciate the number of hydro poles, chaos trees that are present in the corridor. And that's really why we've brought in that design toolkit to aid in making those decisions as we move forward. And then lastly, the phase delivery. So we do recognize it is a considerable cost to try and do this corridor in one big chunk. So we really wanted to provide some fundable projects in that $1 to $3 million range that could be funded in that, sort of next year to get, a bit of momentum going along the corridor, but also break it up into logical chunks where if funding did become available, we could combine a few of the projects or segments and deliver them as your dollars came up and became available. The recommended project priorities. So what I want to start off with is the evaluation criteria. So each of the numbers you see on screen, so the intersections and the segments, were put through an evaluation criteria matrix that was weighted. So we have congestion relief, safety, cost of efficiency, alternate mode connectivity, and constructability. Now, and as everyone here can appreciate, not everyone's going to look at that criteria and see it through the same lens. So really, that's why I strongly feel that a lot of this needs to go to the public to get their feedback to really ensure that that weighting and that criteria resonates with the public. So again, I guess with that, I do want to flag that take the priorities with a bit of a grain of salt, because we've done this not completely in a vacuum, but as you can appreciate, everyone's going to see those criteria in a different way. And really, once we get that feedback, it would then shape those priorities again. So it'd be a bit of an iterative process, bringing in that public engagement and decisions from the public. To reiterate, this is a starting point. This is not the final answer. And we strongly recommend bringing this to the public. So the key projects, so through the evaluation criteria and matrix that we built, the key projects, number one being Metchosin Road at Lagoon, number two, Metchosin at Painter, three, Metchosin Road at Wishart, number four is segment two, which is that Kenning Court to Wishart Road section. Segment five being, priority five being Metchosin Road at Souk, and then priority six is segment one, with priority seven being segment three. And again, that's where I will highlight that, I feel that Wishart Road and segment two has the highest chance probably of shifting within those priorities. So they all really do, depending on funding and how the community sees it, but that's where we landed on our initial review. So the top three seen on screen here, we have Lagoon Road, converting that to a signalized intersection, providing dedicated turn lanes, has strong operational benefit, and it could be done as a standalone project. Number two would be Painter Road. It's a fairly low cost improvement. It's tied to the school crossing connections. It has that pedestrian desire line through the Royal Roads lands. And it could be a part of a quick implementation. And then priority three, predominantly because of capacity improvements, reducing the queue length at Wishart, and setting the corridor up for future growth. So with that, we've developed a few concepts, and one thing I want to acknowledge right away, so the areas that we've highlighted in red are really where that design toolkit comes into play. Is how does the public see, how do we want to allocate that space within the constraints that we have? So we have purposely kind of shown that cross-section within the existing property lines, recognizing that really those decisions will be part of that public engagement event and setting those priorities and ensuring that we have buy-in with those tools. In terms of what's between the curves, so curb to curb, like the laning, is we've set that up for the long-term success, providing the desired 3-lane cross section to the north, adding that required left turn storage bay. I guess coming south, turning down onto Lagoon Road. We also identified the need for a right turn lane off Metchosin heading northbound down to Lagoon, all of which would be provided in this initial concept design and further refined through detail design. The next location would be Painter Road. Again, take what's behind the curb with a bit of a grain of salt. The areas highlighted in red, that's part of the design toolkit. This one could be packaged with Lagoon if funding became available. It is in such close proximity, and it really would set up segment 2 for the ultimate cross section, tying these two projects together. We do recognize that could be fairly costly, and that funding might not be available right away. So it could be implemented on its own or tied with other projects. The next geometric we put together would be Metchosin Road at Souk. So again, the same things apply with the areas highlighted in red, applying to the design toolkit and some public engagement. But we've really set the laning through our analysis. So as you see on the bottom of the screen, that's Wishart heading north, turning up onto Metchosin Road requires an additional left turn lane, which is then provides some of the constraints that you see up in the property there. On the southeast side, so heading, I guess, north up Metchosin, we require a fairly sizable left turn lane. And then ultimately Metchosin Road heading north up towards Souk, because that's where that 4-lane cross section comes into play. The next geometric that we put together was Metchosin Road at Souk. So we put together this geometric that you see here. We've costed it. We've done the traffic analysis on it. We've really set the city up for a potential grant opportunity with what you see on screen here. It is noted as option A, but we do have an option B that is in the report, and that's more of a traditional signalized intersection, adding a left turn storage lane or left turn lane, sorry, onto Souk Road. And then having an additional receiving lane on Metchosin Road, so to allow for that dual left turn from Souk to Metchosin. So again, we've done the geometric to set the city up for grant opportunities. I do strongly feel because of the significant third-party coordination, so hydropoles and relocations that could be required for both designs, that they are brought to the public to really inform that decision on whether option A or option B, or potentially option C if someone brings one forward. Moving on down the corridor priorities is we have priority number 4, which is segment 2. So that's the highest ranked corridor in the framework. Has both school frontages, has missing network connections, strong safety benefits. Priority number 5 was the previous slide, which was Souk at Metchosin. Priority number 6 is segment 1. That's the most implementation ready, tied to development opportunities. And then priority 7 is segment 3, and that's the most constrained section. That's from Wishart to Souk, and it has predominantly just due to utility conflicts, property impacts. It's the highest complexity, it's the highest cost, and that's the rest of the priorities. In terms of us for next steps, as I mentioned throughout the presentation, is the strong recommendation for stakeholder and public engagement as we move forward to ensure that we really have a lot of buy-in with the prioritization framework, the evaluation criteria, and the way that it's weighted, right? Because how that's put together really does inform those priorities. And we're talking about some fairly significant dollars when you look at some of the project costs. In addition, we really want to, and for our next steps is third-party coordination. So we really want to get out ahead of hydro and other utility providers in terms of any potential relocation. So for a bit of context, moving a hydro pole can often take upwards of a year or more just in that coordination effort. So we really want to get out ahead of there. So that's not going to be delaying us through detailed design and ultimately construction. In addition, for third-party coordination, we really want to make sure that we're getting out and talking to BC Hydro, or not BC Hydro, sorry, BC Transit, and then emergency services, so the fire department, ensuring that there's a level of comfort with what we're proposing along the corridor prior to the fairly sizable investment into a detailed design. So the more that we can get that information ahead of time, it's going to make that detailed design transition much smoother for us. And then lastly, moving into detailed design. So with the engagement completed and that feedback brought forward, we can then move into detailed design. And to do that, there's a few other studies that would need to be completed. So do a geotechnical investigation. We need to look at contaminated soils along the corridor, if there is any there. Do some additional survey, look at some drainage, just to provide us all the information that we would need to ultimately take to detailed design and construction. So I guess with that, just wanted to thank you for your time and open up the floor for some questions.
Thank you very much. I'll open the floor to council. Councillor Day.
Thank you. Sorry, I meant to remember at public participation, we received a letter and from a Colwood resident who didn't identify their letter particularly as being for committee of the whole, but I think it really does pertain to this. So I just thought I'd not read you the whole letter, but rather just her bolded statement about the Metchosin corridor. She wrote in that the big picture message is this: council should not approve any land use bylaw zone that limits or constrains the city's ability to implement an effective future transportation network for Colwood's residents. So I think that's important. We've recently had a couple of projects come forward on the Metchosin corridor. So that is definitely a consideration that we need to think long term, and we have a tendency to talk about roads, or we talk about housing, or and we don't always put it all together. So I think it's important to look at what do we want this to look like, and what do we need in order for it to be comfortable and an effective area for all transportation users. I'm very hopeful that I know there's real challenges in this quarter, but I'm really hopeful that we can get to a design that allows for comfortable transit use, comfortable cycling, pedestrian access, and also lets people get in and out of Colwood when they need to. And to that end, I don't want to preclude anyone else asking questions or anything, but I do want to try to encourage council to refer this back to committee. It's no different than any planning and land use thing that comes forward. We usually start at committee and then come to council as a good start for getting input from the community. And I do recognize that as the proponent on this, consulting to try to find solutions for us, that is a big part of your recommendation, is to work on really engaging the community on what this looks like, how it works, who it doesn't work for, because we need to hear that as much as who it does, even though it's not always easy. It's important work that we do, talking to everybody about how they use the corridor and what works and what you see not working. And certainly that is something that is important to me. Is probably the most well-used route in Colwood. I always look at rush hour as I'm aggravated in traffic coming home from work and thinking, how is it that there's 30 cars queued up to turn left at Metchosin Road? So it's a big impact to all of us all the time. So we want to find the right way forward. So I'll listen to others, let them ask what questions they have. I know we've got some pretty good head scratchers along this corridor that's going to require some sacrifice, some compromise, a little bit of everything. But I want to do that really with the community that's both moving through the area and in the area, like the actual residents along Metchosin Road too.
Thank you very much. Councillor Grove.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have a few questions, and one would be about burying the hydro. I think this has already been touched upon in past meetings about maybe a multiple or some vague sense of, because people talk about that, and I know it makes sense to get those poles out of the way and bury the services. However, as I recall, maybe last year there was a comment at a meeting where the number was staggering, and I don't know, is there something you can say to that to put the perspective in?
Yeah, it is quite costly to bury underground utilities, and not just the cost, the time required for that coordination. So you can appreciate, all the homes, not all of them, but the bulk of the homes along the corridor are all serviced overhead. So to put it all underground, you now require designs for each resident to then go underground to service their property. So it is a costly endeavor. I reserve from putting a number out there, but I can tell you it's costly.
Yeah, so always like to try to beat things on the head with a number like $100 million more, like double the price for the entire project. Like, can there be anything to sort of put it into perspective? If it's 10% more, that's a big number. Maybe John.
I can't give, through your worship, I can't give you a real number. But, you know, $50,000 a pole is certainly reasonable at like a minimal size. But then, as Brad's pointed out, you've got every single resident that needs to now have their individual service underground it.
Yep.
So the expectation would be we'd have to pay for that as well, which is a couple of $1,000s. I think there's 100 poles out there. So quick math on 100 times 50,000, that's 50 million.
Right. I just try to find the words to put that to rest, because in my own mind, I know it was put to rest a year or two ago at a meeting. So anyway, I don't need to belabor that one, but you also mentioned that you had prepared with the notion of the roundabout at Suk and Metchosin Road, preparing the city for to be grant ready or shelf ready project.
Yep.
Can you explain a little bit better what that means? And are there other opportunities for grants all the way through if we stage this, or?
Yes, typically when you're applying for grants, you're just gonna need a geometric and then a cost. And then obviously do our homework. So we've done the traffic analysis, we've done the footprint exercise, so doing the geometric design of it, and then costing, so that when grant opportunities come up, it should give you what you need to at least apply for it, or at least soften the blow of how much work it's gonna be to then apply for that opportunity.
Can that grant opportunity process mess with our priority things here? Like, if all of a sudden can a grant suddenly show up and then we apply and get it and then change your?
Yeah, and that's kind of the whole intention of the report being a bit of a blueprint, where if funding became available, that evaluation criteria, the cost piece of it, you know, if you have the money, then the other priorities can really raise up the list fairly quickly.
Thank you. And the last item I have here is about the notion of the urban forest canopy. I know walking up from down the hill at the art gallery the other day, it was nice to have a shaded side of the street to walk on, because it was blistering hot, even though the temperature wasn't that high. So the notion of being able to squeeze into a limited corridor is a part of our issue here, I know.
That's right.
But to give up trees, and I know there's other municipalities that have it, there's parts of Colwood that have it, and I think it's a really valuable item. And I wouldn't want to give that up too much. Likewise, the efficacy of all active transportation availability, the idea of linking pathways up Metchosin Road. If that's a main traffic corridor for cars out of Royal Bay, surely it's one for e-bikes as well as other vehicles. One notion too, and I just want to throw that in at the end, is about neighborhood electric vehicles, which is an up and coming potential. There's Chinese vehicles that may come in at a $10,000 range. I know they're small and I know they're low speed, but Colwood has the bylaws to allow them. I think they travel on a regular road, but it's another consideration to make room for alternate ideas of transportation. Likewise, in the future, who knows when we have the autonomous driving, and that will perhaps help control some of the pressures of congestion. I don't know that this is the place to talk about that in any length, but I just wanted to throw some of that out. Thanks for your time and report. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Jordison.
I just wanted to second Councillor Day's motion when she puts it out there.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I could hear you doing math under your breath, and we were talking about underground utility poles, and if they're 50,000 a pole, and there's 100 poles, is 5 million. And I heard 50 million too. Went, no, right away.
I was trying to get the mayor's attention. That's correct. But that 50,000 is to move a pole. It's not to bury a pole. We have to put everything underground with regards to. So if we're moving poles, it's 50,000 a pole. If you're going to put hydro ducts in, take those communications and put them over, you know, that number again at the corridors, how long? 1,500 meters, something like that, 2 kilometers, could be anywhere from 3 to 5,000 a meter per. It's a big number. It's not like doubling or tripling the entire corridor, but it's going to be 10, 12 million probably for everything. And I don't know what the cost is to a service to a house, but to underground it all, would be a significant
I think
cost.
when the time comes, though, it would be good to have. that
100%
reflection
we can
for the
give you
community
options
to
with
say,
regard
this
to
is
the
what it
cost.
would cost if you underground the line, Metchosin corridor, or if you go with poles. I think that the community would want to be able to see those options. I mean, I support the engagement, funding the engagement of this. I'm just curious of timelines, like how long, when I didn't see a timeline on here for if this moves forward, what does that look like as far as how long is the engagement? When would we see something like this come back to potentially a new council? So thank you.
That's a good question. Our intent is to try to see if we get something to work through the summer, but as we know, trying to do engagement in the summer sometimes can be very difficult to get people out and get a lot of through thought there. So we were thinking September, October, which is not the best time in this current situation. So I would suggest that if you really wanted to have significant engagement that really mattered, it would end up being after the end of October.
Thank you.
So much, Councillor Jensen.
Thank you, Worship. There's a lot of good meat on the bone in here. I quite like it, but these renderings, I mean, I take it these cross-section renderings are really just for artistic purposes. We haven't arrived at
Yeah, what's behind the curb is really, that's going to be informed by that public engagement and the acceptance of that design toolkit.
So I'm hopeful that we include some variations, and I mean, staff can chime in. You know, I don't think it would be unreasonable to consider multi-use pathway, multimodal pathway, which we're going to likely do. It looks like on VMP. In order to save some road cross section for, you know, for an extra turn lane or that. So I guess the question is, will we be including some optional renderings of a variety of cross sections as it moves forward to the public?
Joe?
That certainly would be the intent. I mean, at the end of the day, you know, we've got the corridor truly is unique in some of the obstacles that are there, but it's also unique in some of the opportunities like the right now, the current university lands, there's a massive length there where there's no driveways, where a multi-use path would make sense. Again, looking at that, I think public engagement will give us an idea whether that's something we want to go forward with. And then once we make that decision, we'll look at areas where it's appropriate, because there just is some areas where a multi-use path may not be appropriate because of multiple accesses or something like that. But I definitely think when we start looking at this corridor, because of its uniqueness, we will see all kinds of opportunities to do very different things. We'll have some areas where sidewalks are wider and narrower, bike lanes are wider and narrower. And if we get too narrow on those pieces of facility, then that's a great opportunity to go to them up for sure.
So I like it, and we have talked as a council about being flexible within the road right of way to avoid having to purchase a swath of land or to move said pole or to you know, unfortunately have to chop down some of the, I guess we don't chop anymore, but to take down you know, a fir tree, trees of significance that do exist on that stretch of roadway for sure. And I think some of them look quite healthy, but I like that decision-making matrix too. That makes some sense to me with my arts degree.
Yeah. So
thanks for that. And I don't see any reason why you know, we couldn't move this along in some form or another, but I'll yield to Councillor Day. Thank you.
before I go to Councillor Day, just a quick question I have right now. I'm just trying to make sure I'm very clear. You're going to do this engagement, and so what are you going to do with the results? Like, what are you coming back to us with? Because I'm just trying to understand that what's the next part of this decision-making process? I'm not clear.
Yeah, we would develop a public engagement plan, or at least an outline in conjunction with staff to ensure that we're getting the feedback. I see it personally as the buy-in to the weighting and the evaluation criteria. So how do people look at safety? How do you weight that criteria to allow us to then kind of lock in those priorities and then start that design process? So I think that's something along those lines. Again, we could tailor it, and it could be, you know, my initial thought, without maybe speaking out of turn here, but would be, starting with kind of getting the big lens of how we're going to look at those priorities, and then bringing back some designs to public afterwards. So it's like, okay, this is where we see our kind of decision-making matrix, and we align with these values, and now here's what the designs look like.
Same. So you don't have, your company doesn't have a standard rubric to,
Not, we often tailor it to the municipality and what their needs are, like different budgets, different, sometimes they'll go to strategic stakeholder groups, or maybe it'll be an online inform. So depending on council's direction, like there's the whole spectrum of engagement, whether you want just inform or do you want to consult or collaborate with the public. And I think that's a decision ultimately made by you guys to tell us, what spectrum of engagement you'd like us to see us go through, and then we can tailor a plan to doing so.
thank you very much. I'll go to Councillor Day then.
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion to refer this to the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee. And further that any future engineering reports would come directly to committee and then to council. I think it's really worthwhile for the committee members to be able to be empowered to give a first look at things so that are coming in, identify areas of concern, and for all of that input to come back to council together as we try to navigate the best solution going forward.
Thank you very much. I'll open it up for discussion. Oh, it's not seeing any then. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Well, that's pretty unanimous. Okay, thank you. Motion carries then. Thank you very much. And there being no further business, I shall adjourn the committee of the whole. Thank you very much.